Hello, this is Colin with Maker Farm. In this video we're going to show you how to assemble the X Carriage for the i3v Prusa that uses the aluminum extrusion. To do this, make sure you download the build guide for the i3 Prusa, find the page that says the X Carriage, and then make sure you gather all of the items on that page before you start this video. Basically there are 4 pieces to the X Carriage. One of them has our letter R, and also an arrow pointing to the right hand side of the machine. That is going to be the front of our piece. And then you can go ahead also and gather the other pieces. The other ones don't really have a front or a back or a top or a bottom or anything like that. Basically that first little piece can just slot in just like that. Then we have 2 other pieces that will just go in the sides. Just like that. Then for all of those you'll just use some M3 16mm long bolts, and then just regular nuts, not the lock nuts on these. Anytime you have a nut trap in a piece of wood, you'll just use one of these regular nuts. Okay, so I've just installed M3 16 nuts and bolts in all those locations. I believe there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 total. Okay, the next thing that we are going to do, go ahead and assemble some of the idlers, just like you did in the other videos. We're going to need 3 of them total. 2 of them are going to use little aluminum spacers, and 1 of them will use the eccentric spacer. I was just like to mark that thick side so that we can tell when we're adjusting it when we're at the maximum point. Okay, the 2 ones with the aluminum spacers are going to go on the top, and just put an M5 lock nut on there. And then just tighten those down just like the others. If it's too tight and your bearing or your idler doesn't turn freely, loosen it up a little bit so that it does turn freely. Okay, and then the last of those is going to go on the bottom. There's 3 holes. You're just going to use the center hole. And it's always a good idea to put an M5 washer on there before you put your lock nut on. Do the same thing, just tighten it so that it still turns freely. Okay? So that's how it's going to look. You're going to have your R on the front so that you can see it. Then the last 2 things that we have to put on here, we've got 2 small holes right here. These are going to be for our belts. So what you're going to do for the X assembly, you're going to gather your X belt. Make sure to refer to the build guide for the belt lengths. Basically, you just loop the ends over like that and then zip tie them. And what this is going to do is on the back of our machine, we are going to get 2 of the 16mm long bolts. And you're going to position it so that the teeth on the belt are pointing down to the single one here. So basically, with the teeth down, put one of the M3 bolts in there, and then just get a regular nut. Put it up so it touches the bolt. And then we're going to take that, install it in there. Do the same thing for the other side, making sure that those teeth are pointing down. Put it in that other hole. Remember, this is the back side. Then we're going to turn it around the front, and you can install some nuts on the front of that. Just like that. Now if your loops are too big, like this one, let me show you when I tighten it down, what's going to happen, that belt is going to come off around it. If that happens, you need to make that loop smaller. So I'm going to cut that zip tie off, make that loop smaller, or just basically zip tie closer to that the end of the belt there. So there you can see how small that is. Now when we put that bolt in, it's not going to be able to come off. Okay, so now you have both of your belts, or sorry, both of those bolts holding your belt, and it's going to go just like that on our X assembly when we get that all put together here next. If you have any questions, make sure to refer to your build guide. There's also contact information where you can get a hold of us if you have any further questions. Thank you.